Welcome to Dino's Garage. Have you ever had an accident where you're in a car park, something like that? Suddenly you have to pull on the brake and the bike tips forward, off to the side, you lose your balance, you go down with the bike. Eventually you get it picked up, but unfortunately you find out the brake lever, the end of it, has snapped off. What do you do to repair it? Let's have a look in Dino's Garage. Welcome back to Dino's Garage. Now today I'm going to talk about the VFR800, but unfortunately I'm not talking about this in a bright and happy way, because unfortunately yesterday got to the end of the road. It's a little bit of a downhill right hand turn going down a hill, just about to go, look left, look right, and there suddenly was a car that had sped up the hill towards me, and yet I had to dab on the brake, and unfortunately the bike went over on its side, nice and steady and slowly, just like a tree falling, but unfortunately a little bit of damage to the bike. Let's have a look at what I'm talking about, and then we'll talk about how I'm going to fix it. And so the most obvious thing is this here brake lever. As we can see, the bike went down on its right hand side, pushed against this point and bent it round. Still intact, but that has to be replaced, and I've ordered another for that. There is a tiny little bit of superficial damage which we'll have a look at down here, and then another little bit down here, but the worst thing is actually the brake lever, because the brake lever end got bent round as this folded back, and unfortunately it, just being an alloy, just ping and snapped off. So we're going to come down and have a look at this, and then maybe how I can get around fixing it. So as we can see, we have got a little bit of scuffing on the casing here, but also there is a bit of weathering from the paintwork that's come off already at the top. So what I will do is kill two birds with one stone, and actually what I'll do is rub that down and actually spray that over and tidy that up, and that will pretty much be problem solved, and that'll be that disappeared. The biggest problem, as I say, is this brake lever down here. What I'll have to do is actually cut off that sharp bit there with my trusty little angle grinder that we've seen me use in so many other videos before, and then I'll just take a file that off nice and neatly, and then we'll look to drill a hole through there, and then we'll put a bolt in. We do have the problem obviously of the angle and the way that comes round, so we need to make sure that the brake lever sort of comes around at a 90-degree angle to the foot peg, and then I have actually got a rubber that I've ordered, which is actually a gear change rubber, that hopefully will go over that bolt, cover that over, and then that should be, if not a temporary fix, it might end up being a fairly decent permanent fix to the problem. So let's get on and start that now. So that's that just smoothed off, so there's nothing that can cut or, you know, is in any way particularly sharp. Now we've got to look to drill through, but first we need to find a suitable bolt fixing that's going to go through into there to become our foot pedal pad, or whatever you want to call it, to actually operate down onto that lever. So I'm not one to throw away bolts and fixings off of previous motorcycle projects, and I'll show you what I got down here. So I'm going to have a good rummage and hopefully I'll find something that'll suit the purpose. So let's get down and have a look at what I mean, etc, etc. I've had a rummage and I found this. Now this is almost ideal because this is exactly the kind of thing I was thinking of. What I wanted to find was something that had a clear shaft like that with no thread on it, and then a small, relatively small thread that looks like that's about 8mm. I may have to cut it to length, and what I'm going to try and do actually is drill a hole and tap a thread into that brake lever arm, and then that will wind into there, and then I can either use this whole section as my footrest, and then obviously, you know, the actual pedal down, or I can maybe cut this thread off and then just have this section, and then with the rubber that I've ordered I can then put that rubber section on here and have that short section. But for now I think I'll wind that in and leave this on and test it and see what it's like. Obviously I don't want it too long because I don't want it to have too much leverage that it can actually start sort of bending and causing problems on the arm, but I need it to be long enough to be able to get your foot onto and give that brake a good pressing down. But that looks to be pretty ideal. I mean, I had lots of other bolts in here, you know, again there's something like that look, but it's a bit heavier on the actual thread, and I want a smaller hole in that arm if I can, because it's not the biggest, thickest piece of alloy, that arm. But again, that's something like that would be ideal. Cut that off, wind that in, and then you've got this section. But we'll give this one a go and see how we get on. Now, one of the first things I need to do is where this arm is coming out at around about a 45-degree angle, what I need to do is flatten off this end, so when this bolt goes in, it actually goes in and sits, you know, parallel to the footrest, so we end up with this winding in like that, parallel to the footrest, parallel in effect to your foot, or 90 degrees to your foot. Because if it goes in and I don't flatten this off and drill a hole, that'll go in like that and be completely the wrong angle. It will look wrong and it won't be right to obviously operate as a foot pedal. So we need to flatten this off so we're coming in and it's sitting flat against the arm like that. So that's what I'm going to do now, is just use the angle grinder to flatten that off so we can wind in at the right angle. So first up, I've got a 5.5mm drill bit that I'm going to drill in through here. Then we need to obviously tap the hole that this is going to wind into on the thread. So I have my thread tapper here, not an expensive thing, a fairly cheap tap set, but if it does the job, it's good enough for me. You can buy very expensive ones of these. So first up, we're going to drill this hole. So we're through. Next up, I need to tap this thread through with this thread tapper. So let's begin tapping. We can see now that it's going through nice and easy. And so there it is, that is it now finished. It is wound in there on the thread against the shoulder. I've put a 10mm nut on the back, and in addition to that I've got the locking compound on the thread going in, and also on the nut locking on the back, as you can see it is not exactly perpendicular to that foot peg. I would have to try and bend this arm, you know, and try and bend this, which would then cause more stress either on this shoulder here where we drilled through, or, you know, on an inner part, and really I don't want to start bending that, but it should be pretty good to operate with the brake pedal. So yeah, it feels good underfoot. Can't see that being an issue whilst riding it. And so there we are, that is it, now finished. As always, thanks for watching Dino's Garage. Please subscribe for this and many other videos. Thanks for watching.